The light is red, the kids are in bed, and that means we are here to talk about Colorado sports. It's time for some Mile High Musings with me, your host, Aaron Yowell, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Welcome in, everyone. That's right. We are here to talk about Colorado sports. This, ladies and gentlemen, is our debut episode of Mile High Musing, sports perspective, a mile above the rest. Yes, thank you. Thank you. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the Rockies, oof, and their recent series, yikes. We're going to talk about the Avalanche's season, recent player moves. We're going to talk about the Nuggets draft, NBA free agency. I'm going to take the opportunity to rank the major Colorado championships. And of course, what would a Colorado sports podcast be without reflection on the NBA title? Shout out to everyone joining in the chat. Glad that you're here tonight. Thanks for being here to share episode 1. I got to be honest with you, as a human, this is a moment that I've been thinking about for 9 years. 9 years ago, I decided that wouldn't it be fun to do something like this? And shout out to IE Sports Radio for seeing me on social media and just cultivating a place that is for diehard sports fans. But before we get too far in, let's go ahead and take care of some housekeeping, shall we? For the last 9 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the world. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to keep up with the latest in sports and with our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website, iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and all of our show pages with personal bios and the podcast feed for each individual show, including this one, Mile High Musings. Check out the show page at iesportsradio.com/Mile High Musings. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop, including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeve shirts, hoodies, and so much more. For nearly a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans and for the fans, and we thank each and every one of you for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's jump right into segment 1 here on the debut podcast. We're going to talk about the Rockies. I know. Listen, they gave up 3 touchdowns in 2 innings last night. I don't know if they realized that the LA Chargers got off the bus at Coors Field instead of the LA Angels. But last night was rough. We're going to get to this afternoon here in a minute, but I can't not talk about last night. So by the end of the third, the Rockies had given up 21 runs. And yes, last night was the worst loss in franchise history. Somebody on the network asked me, what is at the core of the Rockies' issues? And I told them altitude is real. Pitchers get punished exponentially worse for mistakes at Coors Field, which makes good veteran pitchers not want to play in Colorado. For example, the late, great Roy Halladay grew up in the Denver metro area, same school district that I did. His baseball coach was actually my elementary PE teacher. Weird 6 degrees of separation. That dude played everywhere but Colorado because he knew. So we have these pitchers that get blasted for making mistakes, so therefore the Rockies are running out younger guys who are going to make mistakes because they're learning the pro game and they're still fine-tuning their motion and painting corners. And if they're not hitting the dot, they're getting blasted for it. So it is disheartening to me because Colorado as a state is a huge baseball state. There are so many good players, and I mentioned Roy Halladay as one of them, but there's so many good players that come out of Colorado club teams and high schools. And, I'm afraid that the lack of success by the Rockies is going to start hurting that youth development. They haven't done anything in 20 years. And when we get to in the last segment, we get to talk about the NBA championship, and the Nuggets didn't do anything for 47 years. Yeah, 47 NBA years. Let's talk about the fact that it was 56 total years. We'll get there. There's just something about it. Now, I don't have the answer. I haven't had the answer for almost 20 years. I will admit to you, full stop, baseball's not my number one sport. I get really excited for baseball in March and April. By the time the end of May hits, it gives me tired head, and it ends up being nap fodder. And then I'll get interested again in September, but by then, usually, it's too late, and the Rockies are done. And so I'm drawn to other teams, which I don't want to be. I don't care about watching these other teams. I will, because the World Series is a spectacle that I can't miss, and I haven't missed for a long time. But I haven't had the answer for 20 years. I'm not a baseball guy. I vow to you listeners that I will dive a little deeper in to the Rockies. Now, they did win today. They won 4-3, and it was like a pure National League game. They ended up winning the series against the Angels despite a run differential of -20. They won a 4-3 game today with manufacturing runs. They had 2 sacrifice flies, a single, and a solo homer. I got to be honest with you, I really, really wish I knew what was going on, but I don't yet. And it sucks when you have these great positional players that work really hard, and there's this young talent. I can think of all of the guys that have gone through that are gone. Nolan Arenado, Trevor Story, Troy Tulowitzki, for example. They were amazing. They're gone because we couldn't keep them because we didn't have pitching. I'm not going to take much longer than this. Let's take a quick break right here at the end of the first segment. And when we get back, we're going to talk about the Avalanche. And so let's jump to a break. And then on the other side, we'll talk about the Avalanche. So stay tuned for more Mile High Musings with Aaron Yowell here on IE Sports Radio.
What's good, everyone? It's Drewski, the host of Heart of Texas Sports on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. On this station, we cover everything in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area, from where we covered the Dallas Cowboys, the Dallas Stars, Dallas Mavericks, Dallas Wings, Texas Rangers, TCU, SMU. We cover it all right here every Wednesdays from 9 to 10 p.m. Central Time. Make sure you stay live with me on the Heart of Texas Sports on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernan.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the '08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies.
And your one-timers.
You wicked wristas.
And be sure to protect your five-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
All right, we're back here on Mile High Musings, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Thank you very much. Let's jump into segment 2. Promised Avs talk, so let's get to some Avs talk. I will tell you that straight up, this past season was a disappointment. I made a point to watch as many Avalanche games as I could, and I think, honestly, in the regular season, I probably got into the 70s. Now, it helps that my family schedule allows for my daughters to go to bed and then the puck drops. That's a beautiful thing. But it was appointment viewing in my house. And so one of the things that I realized about this year was that, you know, they were struggling and at one point we're outside of the playoffs looking in. And it is really hard to beat the rest of the league when you're focusing on beating the rest of the league and also the injury bug. I felt like the Avs expended a lot of energy winning the Central Division, and truth be told, I don't know how much that mattered. Hindsight is always 20/20, but you look back now at what happened in the first round of the playoffs, and maybe it would have been better had we not pushed for the Central Division. I wasn't inside that locker room with Coach Bednar. I don't know if we actually pushed, but I'll tell you that by the time we got to Seattle, we looked gassed. And now credit where credit is due. Seattle did to the Avalanche what Colorado did to every single team they played last season on their way to winning the Stanley Cup. They outmuscled them. They outworked them. They were the first to every puck. Every 50-50 puck went the Avs' way in 2021, 2022. And I feel like they had nothing left. Now, I'm not saying that our lack of gas was the only reason we lost to Seattle. Seattle was a good team. And they didn't care who we were. And I think that speaks volumes to their culture and their coaching staff and inside their locker room, because when you're the champion, and Vegas is going to experience this next year, shout out to my Vegas cohorts on the network and my hockey heads on the network, Vegas is going to experience this next year where everybody's gunning for them, just like the Nuggets are going to experience it next year too. And so Seattle loved the idea of being in their second season in existence, and they get the defending Stanley Cup champions. Oh, and by the way, the Avs really struggled against Seattle in the regular season. Period. So, and I think that having both Mikko Rantanen and Nathan MacKinnon eclipsing the 100-point mark was awesome. But I also think it was troublesome. Because once we got into the playoffs, I don't feel like any of the other guys on the ice had the confidence to score the puck. And I feel like Seattle keyed in on Mikko and said, well, my God, McKinnon's going to get his. So let's let him get his, and we'll just take Rantanen out of it. You see this a lot in the NBA, and we saw it a lot. We Colorado sports fans saw it a lot with the Nuggets on their run when teams were like, oh, let's just make Jokic a scorer. Okay. But it worked. Seattle did it, and Seattle was a great team. They outworked us every loose puck, every 50-50, and Philip Grubauer? I know. That dude stood on his head. And good for him, because he probably had a chip on his shoulder too. Now here I am, Avalanche diehard, praising the Seattle Kraken. Y'all, they beat us. They beat us good. And it was 7 games, but I don't feel like it was 7 games. So let's real quick talk about the player personnel moves that we've made so far. The 2 major ones that are tipping the scales. The first one that we made this offseason, Avalanche acquired Fredrik Olofsson, a left winger from conference division rival Dallas, for future considerations. So they get a guy for next to nothing who played 28 regular season games with the Stars. He had 1 goal, 3 assists. And I got to be honest with you, he's not moving the needle yet. I think he could be packaged with somebody like Newhook, with somebody like Sammy Girard, to pick up somebody else. Now, he did come in and immediately sign an extension with the Avalanche, so that sort of negates that last stance that I took. And obviously, there's something in him that Chris McFarland and Joe Sakic like. If they're going to get this guy in less than half a season with the senior club and sign him to an extension. So with Olofsson, I want to wait and see. I'm not sure yet where he fits in. He's a bottom 6 guy, unless he comes out flying. But we'll see. He might be, one of the 2-way guys, where he's playing in Loveland as much as he's playing down in Denver. I'm not sure. So we're gonna wait and see before we drop that final verdict on Olofsson. What's good, chat? Let me just catch up with chat real quick. Only time you've been proud of the Angels all season? Yeah, hanging 25 on a really, really bad team. I mean, you take what you can get. Davidson, what up? I know you run that basketball podcast. We're gonna have to chat because I got basketball talk coming up. Getting back into free agency. Let's get back into this last one. This move was made this week. And this one does move the needle for me. I will tell you that right now. Avalanche pick up center Ryan Johansson from Nashville, division rival, for Alex Galchenyuk. Now, I liked what I saw from Galchenyuk in his limited action with the club, but Galchenyuk was not an answer to the problems that we need to address, and that is 2C. That is the second line center, especially with the captain being out again. So Johansson's played with the Avalanche before. You're bringing back a veteran centerman who is somewhat familiar with the locker room. He's played with some of these guys before. He's an $8 million cap hit, so he's in. And there's 2 years remaining on his contract before he's an unrestricted free agent. So the Avs are pretty in on him. And I think that at first glance, Johansson is the answer at 2C. But like I said, $8 million cap hit. He played 55 games for Nashville last season. He's kind of got that injury bug thing, which is perfect. He fits right in. He fits right in with the rest of the Avalanche that are hurt. So that's that. He had 12 goals, 16 assists. He won 502 faceoffs. I will be honest with you. I didn't see how many faceoffs he took, but I know that winning faceoffs is a point of contention for the Avalanche. They're not very good at it. So look, as much as I like JT Compher, and I do, I like Compher because he's a homegrown kid, but he didn't show me enough to keep 2C. He was the second line center this year because we didn't have a choice. I think Johansson seems to be the fix for that, or at least the stopgap. But I don't know. I'm more certain about Johansson than I am Olofsson. Now, does this mean that Alex Newhook, is likely to be moved? Because we get Johansson in at 2C, JT goes down to 3C, and then it depends on what we do with Lars Eller. Are we going to re-sign Lars Eller? Are we going to package somebody? I'm not sure. But I will tell you that as far as the two big moves that the Avalanche have made so far, I'm staying neutral with Olofsson, and I have a more positive outlook on Johansson. Straight up. So we're going to take another quick break. On the other side, let's talk about the NBA draft and the free agency and all of these wild moves that have been going on up to this point in the summer. You're listening to Mile High Musings right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey there, sports fans. Are you looking for a sports show that maybe isn't 100% about sports?
Then you might want to check out the Sports Couple Perspectives right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Most sports shows cover only scores and stats, and while we're not opposed to that, we dig a little deeper into sports issues and some of the hottest topics in athletics.
In addition to sports, we take a journey through my neck of the woods, pop culture, with movie reviews of both sports and non-sports films.
Speaking of pop culture, make sure to participate in our game nights, where we quiz each other on our specialties, and you, the listeners, can win IE Sports Radio apparel.
We always have a great time learning more about each other's worlds, one show at a time.
So join us each week on the Sports Couple Perspectives, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
All right. Welcome to AZ Sports Daily. I'm your host, Kiernan Daly, bringing the heat to Arizona sports. There's no discrimination here. We're going to talk about every sports team, professional and college. The show is all about you, the listener. I'm here to entertain you. Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here? It's going to be fun, high energy. You may not agree with what I say. That's okay. Let me hear you. Let's talk about it. Join me every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, right here on AZ Sports Daily. That's AZ Sports, DALEY, and at IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, sports fans? You're listening to IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your favorite West Coast Wisconsinite, Bernie Bango, and if you're a cheesehead, come listen to my show, Big Cheese Sports, where we road trip around America's Dairyland, previewing, reviewing, predicting, debating, and digging into all that is Wisconsin sports at the college and pro levels. Join me on IE Sports Radio, Sundays at 1 p.m. Central Standard. Bernie out.
Well, what is up, Carolina Nation? This is John Felipe of the Carolina Cast, of course, the podcast of, by, and for the Carolinas, right here on IE Sports, your direct feed for all that is sports. And I'm reminding you to tune in Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern for the latest in Carolina sports, whether it's the Panthers that keep on pounding, the fly natures of the Hornets, the storming Hurricanes, the battle of the Blues with Duke and UNC, the fight of the Clemson Tigers, or the amazing atmosphere of any Carolina college. I'm talking App State, I'm talking ECU. I've got you covered. Once again, tune in for the Carolina Cast with me, John Felipe, Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
All right, we're back on Mile High Musings here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's jump into the NBA draft. Let's jump into NBA free agency, the general craziness that is already this summer. Here we are 2 weeks removed from the NBA title, 4 days removed from the NBA draft, and there's all this buck wild stuff going on. And I want to first talk about what these NBA teams are doing to try to catch the Nuggets. Full stop. and then, you know, let's look at, and then after that, let's go ahead and look at the Nuggets draft picks and see what we like and sort of how I feel like they need to grow. But starting with the craziness in the NBA, Phoenix Suns. A lot of Denver fans are catching heat from Phoenix Suns fans about, you know, oh, you're talking an awful lot about the Phoenix Suns. Yeah, I know, because that was our hardest fought series this playoffs. Y'all the only team that won 2 on us. So, of course we're going to talk about it. Nobody else beat us twice. But they get rid of Chris Paul and they bring in Bradley Beal. And here's my yeah but on them. And the yeah but as it pertains to trying to hang with the Denver Nuggets. I feel like Bradley Beal, when healthy, and Devin Booker play very similar styles. I do. And it took Devin Booker having a completely bananas 2 games to have the Suns beat us by single digits in both games. So you have Beal, and you have KD, and you have Booker, and you have Ayton, question mark? Is he even going to be there? Booker requires a lot of the offense to go through him. Kevin Durant obviously requires a lot of the offense to go through him. And for Bradley Beal to be effective, or at least the way he's been effective early in his career while he's been healthy, requires a lot of the offense to go through him. So the Suns, and I get this, I do, because while I am a Colorado homer, I'm objective. So before we get too twisted here, I love my Colorado sports. but I'm always going to give credit where credit is due, and good recognizes good. If the Suns are saying, okay, if Devin's not on, and if KD's not on, which he wasn't, we're going to add one more to the mix in Bradley Beal. Yeah. CP3 was hurt. CP3's old, gang, in the NBA spectrum of things. I say that being 1 year older than CP3 myself, so dang, I just called myself old. But hear me. I don't know that Bradley Beal's the answer, because that's one more place where the ball stops. And the Nuggets have length on the perimeter to defend him. And the Nuggets have size plus that length if Beal wants to try to slash. I don't know that it is the answer. A lot of people are saying instantly, Suns, favorites in the West. Yeah, they said that going into round 2. And we hung 81 on them in game 6 in the first half. Sticking with the CP3 thread, CP3 gets forced out of Phoenix, and that's all the reports. We don't know for sure because it's all speculation or it's all hearsay, he said, she said, whatever. CP3 gets forced out of Phoenix, goes to Washington, which I'm sure he was like, thank you, no. And then immediately gets dealt to Golden State for Jordan Poole, essentially. And I know that there were outlying pieces with that. But the but with the Warriors getting CP3 is, why in God's name would you take the ball out of Curry's hand? CP3 going to come off the bench for you? Does Chris Paul have the veteran savvy right now? And this is not a dig session on CP3. I'm seriously asking. Does Chris Paul have the veteran savvy right now to go, I need to come off the bench and give Steph a breather. And then when I get in the game, Draymond and I can run pick and roll. Or I can do my CP3 things and get people the ball. So right now, I don't know that CP3 there is great for what the Warriors do and the style of basketball that they've played. And it surely is not enough to beat the Nuggets. Then you bring Draymond Green back, which speculation is that Draymond Green's going to come back, and he's going to come back for somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 years and 75 plus million because he opted out. I think Draymond Green is the catalyst. If the Nuggets are the class in the West, it's not guards that are going to beat the Nuggets. It's not. It's who are you going to put on the inside? Who are you going to put on Nikola Jokic to try and slow him down? If you look back at the NBA playoffs, in particular the games where people quote-unquote slowed Jokic down, the Nuggets won. Because he doesn't care enough to score. And we're going to get there. So I think the catalyst for Golden State is Draymond Green, and they need to bring him back. And they would be stupid not to. Then you have the Memphis Grizzlies, who I know were hurt in the playoffs. And their big guys were hurt. I don't know that it matters against the Nuggets, but they bring in Marcus Smart, and this is the most intriguing move to try to stop the Nuggets because Marcus Smart's number one focus against Denver will be Jamal Murray. Talk about a dude with a chip on his shoulder, and we'll get there in the finals segment at the end here. But Marcus Smart's job is to take Jamal Murray out of it, which I think might be the thing. I think the thing is not trying to take Jokic out of it. I think the thing is trying to take Jamal Murray out of it. Because Murray is an emotional player, and I love it because I played that way too. God, I wish I played half as good as Jamal, but I'm saying with the emotion. One thing, two things don't go my way, and then I get in my own head. And it takes a bucket. It takes an and one to get me back going. I think Jamal's the same way. So I think Marcus Smart on Jamal Murray for the Grizzlies is a good move. I think that's a good move, and I think that might end up causing problems for the Nuggets to some extent. But as Larry said in the chat, the Nuggets are stacked. They are. They're stacked. Denver's just stacked. Even if we lose Bruce Brown, which I'm going there, they're still stacked. The last big move is Kristaps Porzingis to Boston. That's another but, because Jokic torched all of the big dudes across the league. Anthony Davis. Yeah, that one. I mean, what are you going to do about it? So, last thing with free agency before I go into the draft picks is, do you think that, and this is an honest question, do you think that super teams are a dying entity? Because the way I'm seeing these teams being constructed right now is there's not enough basketball to go around. And the Nuggets aren't a super team. They're flipping good and they play together. And they play for each other. And they have great pieces and I'm jumping ahead. But they're not a super team. They just like playing basketball together. Moving right on to the draft picks. So, it's the first draft in a while I've been hyped for. Yes, my team did just win the NBA Finals. Yes, did we pick up some pieces last year that I liked in the drafts? Absolutely. Christian Brown? Yeah, that's a whole podcast. You better believe that sometime between now and October, I will do 2 or 3 segments on Christian Brown. Because that dude, holy crow, he went to work in the playoffs. But after the draft, with the 3 picks that we had through trades, and I think it was smart that the Nuggets made a move during the finals, and then they made a move right before the draft to just get some draft capital. I think they did this because Bruce Brown probably going to get paid, probably not in Denver. So they went, okay, can we give CB the keys to the kingdom? Well, Christian Brown's not that much, he's not that good of a ball handler. He's a slasher. Bruce Brown was your second unit point guard, so we need to find somebody. So they go into the draft, and it was pretty obvious. I think once you step back and look at what the Nuggets did in the draft, you can see Calvin Booth's pattern of thinking through this draft. First draft pick they have, 29. They pick Julian Strawther, 6'7" small forward from Gonzaga. 15.2 points per game, 6.2 rebounds. Guy shot 41% from 3. So I watched some tape, and of course it's all highlights and it's this YouTube curated stuff, but I had to watch tape. I'm not going to get on this podcast and this radio station without watching tape before I give some hot takes. That's why my Rocky segment wasn't that long. That tape was ugly. Julian Strawther. He's a great shooter. So he's obviously going to stretch the floor, and I think he's going to benefit from sagging defenses if he's on the floor with Murray and Jokic. The same way that Michael Porter Jr. does. The same way that KCP does. He's got length, which helps. I think it's going to help him on defense, which to me right now is his weakest point. That's something that Christian Brown brings. Christian Brown, he's a dog. He's got dog in him. He plays defense. He's a Bill Self guy. He's a KU guy. For as much as I'm a Colorado homer, I love watching the Kansas Jayhawks because Bill Self wants him to play defense. And Christian Brown plays defense. And I think that's where Strawther needs to up his game, is on the defensive end. Because his shooting's fantastic. CB got minutes because he plays defense. Strawther will get minutes when he plays defense. Kid's got a high basketball IQ. He knows when to cut. He knows how to find space. I watched him in the highlights, head fake and go. He has a nice little floater off the dribble. But of all the things that I saw, I will tell you that the thing that stood out the most to me when I watched Strawther's film is how smooth his jump shot was. His rhythm was quick. There was no gather. There was no noise. He didn't need a long time. It wasn't this weird unorthodox shot. He caught it and shot it. He was hitting a lot of contested threes, not just wide open stuff. So I think that's a great thing for Denver. One more floor spreader. If all the guys can cut to the basket like they were at the end of the finals series, we're going to be okay. Next pick, Jalen Pickett, 6'4". Some say 6'4", some say 6'3". Point guard at Penn State, transferred to Penn State from Siena. He averaged 17.7 points a game, 6.6 assists per game, and the 6'4" point guard averaged 7.4 rebounds per game. 38% from 3, and that's obviously the weakest part of his entire game. But I don't think that's what he wants to do, and I don't think that's the way he wants to play. I really think that he could be the second unit point guard. And I know that's asking a lot of a rookie to come in. Hey, come into the defending NBA champions. Oh, we're going to put you as guy 6 off the bench, and you have to lead the second unit when Jamal needs a breather. But he's older. He's not a 19-year-old point guard coming in. He's not a 20-year-old point guard coming in. And we're going to get to the age thing as a pattern for Calvin Booth's draft picks here in a second. But, there's been all these comps, Mark Jackson and these bigger back-down guards. The one that I liked the most was Andre Miller. Andre Miller, I loved when Andre Miller played for the Nuggets. He was amazing. He made smart basketball plays. And for somebody like me who could not jump out of the gym and, didn't have all this crazy athleticism, I love a guy who makes smart basketball plays. That's probably why Jokic is so amazing in my eyes and why his skill set makes me giggle. So Pickett is Andre Miller. I'm fine with that. If he spells Murray, even with some of the first unit guys, put him in pick and roll with Aaron Gordon or MPJ or Jokic, all day. He wanted to play in the pick and roll in college. He's not afraid to rebound, has a little dog in him. We like players with a little dog in him coming off the bench, for sure. Again, probably the worst three-point shooter of the 3 guys that we drafted. And with that, we're going to get to Hunter Tyson, 6'8" forward at Clemson. He averaged 15.3 points a game, 9.6 rebounds. We love that. He shot between 40 and 41% from 3, so that's great. He's got good length, just like Strother. He can shoot when contested, just like Strother, but he slashes. All of his tape in every package that I watched of him, it wasn't him just shooting threes. Yeah, he hit some threes, but he was cutting to the basket. Oh, he also would go into the post. The kid was very aware of how to take advantage of a mismatch. And he's got good post moves in his bag. So I'm okay with that. And for as much as he's projected as a floor spreader, I really loved what I saw in his ability to post up, in his ability to make a play with his back to the basket. I will tell you straight up, he needs to hit the weight room with AG because he's long and lean. And if he's going to be 6'8", and if he's got that post move bag, he's got to get stronger to play in the NBA. The kid played in the ACC, so he saw Duke and North Carolina twice a year. So it's not like he hasn't seen good talent just because he went to Clemson. So the pattern here. The pattern here for our draft picks, the pattern for Calvin Booth is every single one of these kids is older. So they're more mentally tough. They're more mentally ready to deal with adversity. Same with Christian Brown last year. And I know that we picked up Zeke Naji and Peyton Watson, and we have these other guys that we picked up, but I'm harping on Christian Brown because he played big minutes in the playoffs and in the finals as a rookie. These kids are older. They know how to deal with adversity. I think that's what Calvin Booth wants. That's just how I feel. Let's get a sub, and when we check back in, I want to rank the major college championships based on their impact on this fan's life. You are listening to Mile High Musings on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's going on, football fans? This is me, your boy Larry B, inviting you to join myself, Colin Reynolds, Mike Pat, and John Felipe for one of the most electrifying football shows you have ever heard. 3 and Out, right here at IE Sports Radio. Recap of the week before, a preview of what's to come, and of course, 3 hardcore head-to-head prime-time face-offs each week. You don't want to miss it.
All right, it's your boy Aaron Yowell checking back in here on Mile High Musings right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I want to take a minute to just rank the major Colorado championships for me as a fan. I think this is something that I've heard a lot of Colorado sports podcasters do over the last couple weeks, and I get my opportunity to do that, so I think I would be really sad if I didn't capitalize on that. So I just have to. Homers be homers, right? So I got to hit the honorable mentions first. And I know it's not a title, but it's as close as they have ever been, and it maybe is as close as they're ever going to get. Those 07 Rockies, I mean, they were amazing. They swept everybody in the National League playoffs until they got swept by the Red Sox. But that was appointment television. The Rockies were actually good. You know, that was 14 years after they started playing. I loved that team. They were great. I thought it was maybe the start of something. So that's honorable mention number 1. Honorable mention number 2, 2022 Colorado Mammoth National Lacrosse League. Man, Stan Kroenke living his best life. Lacrosse is one of those sports that I appreciate the heck out of because I can't do it. Because I don't know it enough, and I'm just like, man, those players, those guys, those gals, they're awesome. They're athletic as heck. They're strong. They're tough. Love it. Last honorable mentions, 2010 Colorado Rapids. Shout out. But I wanted to keep this to the big 4, the major 4. So here are the rankings as they pertain to me, a Colorado sports fan. And this is in reverse order, so 7 to 1. I had to do math. It is getting late. I had to do math and count. It is 7. So in spot number 7, the 98 Broncos, Super Bowl 33, John Elway's last Super Bowl against the Atlanta Falcons. That is 7th on my list because that was just such a foregone conclusion. I mean, I was a kid. I was in middle school. It was just such a foregone conclusion. The Broncos were so stupid good that year. They were beating the daylights out of everybody. Elway didn't even play the whole year. Bubby Brister was coming in and beating people. I mean, they were just awesome. And that team was so good and so stacked. And so when we got to the Super Bowl, I was like, okay. It almost wasn't fun. Granted, we had won our first Super Bowl the year before, and we were just trouncing everybody that year. So it was like, okay, yeah, we're going to win. So 98 Broncos, Super Bowl 33. Number 6 on my list, the 2022 Colorado Avalanche. You can see there's no recency bias here. That Avs team, stupid fun. And I talked about them in the second segment about how they outworked everybody. But they were awesome in that they had everything to prove and everything to lose, which made for a really awesome combination. And I will tell you right now, had they not got bit by the injury bug, we're probably talking about a back-to-back. Maybe not because Nazem Kadri was such a big piece, but I love that team. They were great. They just, like, in the pantheon of how these things rank in my heart, when you're the 6th best champion, I feel like that's okay. Number 5 on my list, Super Bowl 50, Denver Broncos, Peyton Manning, the worst offense that the Broncos have put on the field since, oh wait, no, that was last year. Just, I mean, you know, Russell Wilson, just, that was, I couldn't, so Peyton Manning, I love that Peyton got one in Denver. You know, that was such a oh my gosh, I remember where I was moment when Peyton got picked up by the Broncos. But that defense was stupid good. And one of the things that I loved about that Super Bowl is that this is so funny, but like all of the people in my circle, I was a teacher, everybody thought, oh, Carolina's going to just trounced him, Cam Newton. And I went, okay, hold my phone here, hold my beer. Watch out for Von Miller. And they won, and I need you to know that I wore my Broncos jersey that next Monday, and that's all I did. I didn't talk trash to anybody. I just wore my Broncos jersey. Peyton got one, rode off into the sunset like John, Super Bowl 33, chef's kiss. Number 4 on my list, 2001 Avs. Same kind of thing as the Super Bowl 50 Broncos. You have Ray Bourque and Rob Blake. Ray Bourque getting his first cup. I mean, I still get chills watching Captain Joe hand it to Bourque right after he gets the cup, and watching Ray, kiss the cup and cry. And that team fought, because they had a lot of 7-game series. That was at the end of that crazy, it's the Avalanche, it's the Red Wings, it's the Stars, all going to the Cup finals and beating each other up throughout the playoffs in that 6-year stretch. And so for Ray Bourque to finally get his, they finished that playoff run. They won that Stanley Cup without Peter Forsberg, who was so vital to what that team did. So 0-1 Avs sit at number 4. Number 3, 96 Avs. Now I got to tell you that 3, 2, and 1 here are 1A, 1B, 1C realistically, and they could go in any order, because the 96 Avs were the first major championship that Colorado got. It was the first year we had the Avalanche. I remember, getting a Joe Sakic jersey and wearing it all the time in the summer in Denver. And, Denver is not North Dallas where I live now because of work and family, but it's still hot and you're wearing a sweater in the summer. And I tried with all my might to stay up for 3 overtimes. And I remember falling asleep listening to the radio call of that game, waking up the next morning going, we did it, didn't we? Because I had the call burned in my brain. Now here's where I think that people are going to get on me about it. My number 2 is the 97 Broncos. It's the first Broncos championship. It's John Elway's first. It's the helicopter run. It's David slaying Goliath, in that we were basically 2 touchdown underdogs to the Green Bay Packers. And it meant so much to the city of Denver, because the Broncos had been there and gotten their butts kicked so many times. Elway had taken the Broncos to the Super Bowl and then looked like the JV team on the field. It was a big deal. But I will tell you that of all of these championships, none of them have meant the most to my Colorado fan heart as this last Denver Nuggets championship, the 23 Denver Nuggets NBA champions. 47 NBA seasons, 56 seasons in total from when they were the Denver Rockets to now. My mom watched the playoffs with me, and she said, I remember watching David Thompson. I remember growing up watching David Thompson. They played in the old, terrible Denver Coliseum. It was a barn. And then they moved to McNichols, and I remember growing up, watching games at old McNichols, and then we were blessed enough to have season tickets the last year of McNichols and into the first year at Pepsi Center, which is now Ball Arena. And I remember going to all of the Denver Nuggets summer camps as a kid and meeting Walter Davis and Alex English and Mutombo and Dan Issel and all of these guys, and just wanting to play ball. And it was one of those things where it's yeah, you love Michael Jordan. You can't not love Michael Jordan, I thought, because good deserves to be called good, or the GOAT, as it were. But I still, my first NBA jersey that I had as a kid was a navy blue LaFonso Ellis jersey. So this 23 Nuggets championship meant the absolute world to me. We're going to take one more short break. I got 5 minutes to put a bow on this. We're going to take one more short break, and then I'm going to preview next week. And so don't go anywhere. This is Mile High Musings with Aaron Yowell here on the IE Sports Radio Network, your direct feed for all that is.
What's happening, sports fans? Are you a fan of Southern California sports? Are you looking for a show hotter than a hot summer day in California? Then look no further than the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, where I talk about all things Southern California sports. That's right, all sports teams from Southern California. From the hard-hitting tackles of the NFL to the killer crossovers and big three-pointers of the NBA and WNBA to the grand slams of the MLB to the bone-chilling goals of the NHL and to the booming kicks of the MLS, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show has it all for you. Oh, and let us not forget about the college sports as well. So join me, Taryn Rodriguez, every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
All right, coach's timeout is over. The huddle is broken. The whiteboard is back in the bag, and we're back. This is Mile High Musings on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I just want to shout out Chad again. Thanks so much for the support. Appreciate you coming out to support episode 1. The Mammoth did have a great season. They almost won the stinking thing again, so they could have been honorable mentions again. But I've got to take time. I went a little long in my last segment. Or in my third segment when I was talking about free agency and the draft, but I have to capitalize on this because we're starting to get to a point where we're too far away. We're going to be too far away, and I don't want to turn the corner without getting my opinions out into the world. So if you'll bear with me for just a couple minutes as I put a bow on this, I got to talk about the NBA Finals. I told you that in the last segment that this championship meant the most to me as a fan. I mean, we're talking about grown man tears on the couch. Watching every game, standing up with my arms crossed, yelling at the TV like it's going to make a dang bit of difference. But I mean, for sure, this Nuggets team was amazing, and it was a dominant run, regardless of what seeds the Nuggets played, and that's everybody's big card as well. It's not a legitimate championship because the Nuggets didn't play anybody. They played nothing but 4 and 5 seeds, and they played an 8 seed in the finals and all of that jazz. Yeah, okay. Well, they were good enough to get there. I'll tell you that much. They were good enough to get there. So it is what it is. And they were awesome, and they dominated the entire time. And I will tell you that there is a whole bunch of vindication for all of Nuggets Nation, all of the Nuggets fandom, in sweeping the Lakers because they were our boogeyman. And they were the ones that had our number for so many years. The 3 times that we had been to the Western Conference Finals before, we got beat by the Lakers. If you are a true Denver Nuggets fan, or if you're somebody who's super interested in how this finals, this championship run went down, I cannot recommend highly enough. On YouTube, Road to Gold, Denver Nuggets PR put it out themselves. It is unbelievable. You should check it out. I actually just rewatched it yesterday. I think it's the 3rd time I've watched it. I watched, all 4 episodes, round 1, round 2, Western Conference Finals, and then the finals. It was amazing. I mean, and every player talked about this title being for Denver. Every player, Coach Malone, Jokic at the rally podium. It was an all-time parade turnout. There was as many people there, if not more, as there were for the Broncos first and the Avs first. And I just think that it was amazing. Amazing. Next week, I want to go back over this Nuggets roster. I want to spend just one quick segment on the makeup of this team, how it was built, why Nuggets Nation, why Nug Life is back, why this is the golden era of Nuggets basketball. I want to talk football because we didn't get a chance to talk football. And I want to start with the Broncos and the CU Buffs. I want to look at the CU Buffs schedule in depth. Prayers up for Coach Prime, who's recovering from surgery. I want to talk about realistic expectations for the Broncos. And I want to also talk about why NFL quarterbacks who come to Denver always seem up against it unless their names are Elway or Manning. Talk a little bit more about the off seasons for the Avalanche Nuggets. We'll keep an eye on the Bruce Brown contract situation, and of course we'll talk about the Rockies. Let's just hope we're not talking about football scores this time. That's going to do it for this episode, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in to Mile High Musings with me, Aaron Yowell, here on the IE Sports Radio Network, your direct feed for all that is sports. Thank you so much.